the sea of fire that devours the undead, is one of the 7 tortures of hell. Those who have erred in life will face punishments upon entering hell. They will be subjected to punishments that match their sins. It is said that after death, a person will undergo 7 judgments in the underworld. Within 49 days, only those who pass the judgments can be reincarnated. Otherwise, they will fall into the abyss of hell and never escape. The man is named Jin Zihong. He is a firefighter in the fire brigade. One day, while carrying out a firefighting mission, Jin Zihong accidentally fell from a height while trying to save a girl. Until the moment he hit the ground, he was still tightly holding the girl in his arms. In that instant, all his memories flooded back to him. But strangely, he was completely unhurt after falling from such a height. Jin Zihong quickly got up to check on the girl. However, the girl's parents seemed to ignore him, as if they couldn't see him. Just as Jin Zihong felt confused about this, he suddenly heard someone calling his name. He turned around and saw a man and a woman smiling at him. Instinctively, as a firefighter, he immediately warned the two to leave the danger zone. But the panicking teammate nearby caught his attention. Seeing that his teammate was trying to save him, Jin Zihong was suddenly at a loss. It was then that he realized he was already dead. The two people were the hellish messengers, who specialize in guiding souls. Due to his heroic deeds earlier, Jin Zihong was granted a noble status. The last noble to appear was over 400 years ago. Such an extraordinary achievement made the female messenger Helen exclaim in admiration. However, Jin Zihong couldn't accept the fact that he was dead, because he had a deaf-mute mother and a younger brother who was still studying at home. If he died like this, his family would lose their source of income. At this moment, the male messenger Kevin activated the formation. According to the rules of the underworld, the souls of the dead can't linger in the afterlife, nor can they have a chance to say goodbye to their families. Jin Zihong suddenly lifted his feet into the air, and was instantly engulfed by a huge vortex. Passing through the vortex led to the entrance of hell. Countless souls entered through this gate, to undergo the 7-fold judgment lasting 49 days. Here, Jin Zihong met another ferryman Jiang Lin. Since Jin Zihong held a noble status, he could enter first, and Hell assigned him 3 ferrymen to specifically defend him during his judgment. Jiang Lin was the leader among the 3. Over the past 1,000 years, he had successfully helped 47 nobles reincarnate. Jin Zihong was the 48th noble in Hell. Those who sacrificed for justice could smoothly reincarnate under his defense. However, just as they passed through the entrance of Hell, the 3 messengers were stunned. What appeared before them was the murder hell for those who had killed in life. According to the judgment rules of the underworld, the king of hell would start the trial from light to heavy, according to the mistakes made by the deceased before their death. If the lightest crime was murder, then the subsequent judgments would be even more terrifying. Jin Zihong was bewildered to hear that he had killed. As a firefighter, he usually saved lives, and it was impossible for him to have killed anyone. At this moment, Jiang Lin explained that the murder hell not only pursued direct killings, but also held accountable for indirect deaths. If someone died indirectly, due to Jin Zihong's words or actions, he would be prosecuted as a guilty person. So, one should be careful about commenting on others online. Just as Jin Zihong recalled whether he had ever killed someone, the stones beneath his feet suddenly cracked open. Under the huge crack, there was a sea of fire, and inside, the souls who had killed people before their death were being tortured. Instinctively, as a firefighter, Jin Zihong wanted to rescue those below, but with a roar echoing, he was frightened into releasing his grip. This person is the king of Biancheng, who is in charge of the hell of murder. The 2 people beside him are the judges for this trial. Immediately afterwards, they began to read out Jin Zihong's criminal charges. He was accused of having had ample time during a rescue mission to save his teammate, but disregarded his life. This self-serving behavior indirectly led to his teammate perishing in the flames. The judge determined that Jin Zihong's negligent homicide should at least warrant a 50-year sentence in the Sea of Fire. However, due to his noble status, he was only sentenced to 5 years of punishment, and granted 1 opportunity for defense. Jiang Lin urged Jin Zihong to recall the entire event of that day. It turned out that the teammate was merely trapped, and wasn't in any life-threatening danger. Moreover, without tools, it was impossible for Jin Zihong to rescue him. So the teammate told Jin Zihong to first save the trapped civilians, and then return with tools to save himself. After insistence from his teammate, Jin Zihong finally decided to save others first. During the subsequent rescue efforts, Jin Zihong successfully saved 8 trapped civilians, but when he was about to return to save his teammate, the building suddenly collapsed. Although he couldn't save his teammate, Jin Zihong's selfless act of saving others moved the usually cold-hearted King Yanchang. He immediately ordered that Jin Zihong be found not guilty, and expressed his recognition and praise for his actions. After passing the first judgment, the messenger took Jin Zihong across the Styx River to the laziness hell. This is a hell that judges whether the deceased wasted their life in life. Considering all of Jin Zihong's actions in life, Jiang Lin reminded him that as long as he didn't answer any questions, he would surely pass through smoothly. As they spoke, they quickly arrived at the laziness hell. Helen recounted Jin Zihong's hard-working life to the king of laziness, Chu Jiang. After hearing this, King Chu Jiang was deeply moved by Jin Zihong's actions. He then decided to skip the litigation process and directly release him as not guilty. But when King Chu Jiang asked him why he worked so hard, Jin Zihong's response turned all his previous efforts into nothing.
돈 때문이었습니다.
As soon as these words were spoken, the smile on King Chu Jiang's face instantly froze, because in the underworld, money is regarded as a false god. If Jin Zihong's busy life was solely for money, he would surely face a severe judgment from King Chu Jiang. Immediately, the bamboo raft beneath Jin Zihong began to move. As the raft slowly drifted away, a waterfall appeared at the end of the river. A huge grinding disc appeared under the waterfall. The grinding disc rotates continuously every day to punish the souls who have wasted their time in life. If they lagged even slightly, they would be ground into flat cakes. Even if they miraculously escaped into the water, they would be devoured by the man-faced fish within. Seeing this scene, Jin Zihong was scared and at a loss. He was about to fall off the waterfall. Jiang Lin and Kevin jumped into the water to grab the raft. They requested King Chu Jiang to use the karmic mirror once more to see why Jin Zihong had worked so hard to earn money in life. He held multiple jobs every day, in addition to being a firefighter. After work, he also served as a waiter at a restaurant. On his days off, he delivered vegetables at the market. Every Sunday, he cleaned the floors at a public bathhouse. He even worked as a night driver. After cleaning the bathhouse, rather than saying that Jin Zihong's life was about making money, it would be more accurate to say he was enslaved by money. The reason he worked so hard was that he had a seriously ill deaf-mute mother and a younger brother who was studying. If he didn't work tirelessly to earn money, his family simply couldn't survive. After witnessing Jin Zihong's tragic and busy life, he was once again moved. The money earned through hard work wasn't for himself. How could such selfless altruistic behavior be deemed a crime? In the end, King Chu Jiang declared Jin Zihong not guilty. They then continued on their journey to the next trial in the Hell of Lies. On the way, Kevin told Jin Zihong that as long as he passed the 7 judgments, he could send a dream to his mother in the living world. Upon hearing this, Jin Zihong was instantly excited. Because his departure had been too sudden, he hadn't had the chance to say goodbye to his mother. Now, he could only place his hope in dreams. Thus, Jin Zihong changed his previously indifferent attitude and decided to take the upcoming judgments seriously. However, when they were about to reach the Hell of Lies, they were suddenly attacked by hellish spirits. Such a situation could only indicate one possibility. Someone among Jin Zihong's relatives had become a wronged spirit because they had died with grievances. Their souls couldn't find peace in the afterlife. Upon learning this news, Jin Zihong immediately thought of his mother, but this resentment was affecting the underworld, causing the flow of time in the underworld to accelerate. It was very likely they wouldn't be able to pass the judgments within 49 days. In response, Jiang Lin decided to go to the living world to investigate. He instructed Kevin to assist Helen in defending Jin Zihong. Soon, Jiang Lin arrived in the living world. He pretended to be Jin Zihong's friend from life and gained the trust of his mother. After sending the elderly woman away, the smile on his face instantly vanished because he had already sensed the resentment from Jin Zihong's younger brother. It turned out that the family member wronged in Jin Zihong's death wasn't his mother, but his younger brother Xiuhong, who was serving in the military. As the sword continued to cast spells, Xiuhong's wronged spirit appeared before him. However, before Jiang Lin could speak, Xiuhong turned and fled out the window. Jiang Lin followed closely behind. He had to capture Xiuhong's wronged spirit to restore order to the underworld. But in the face of a ghost filled with deep grievances, he was unable to gain any advantage. Instead, he lost the spirit during the chase. Jiang Lin then arrived at the unit where Xiuhong was serving and heard the soldiers discussing the matter of a deserter. But when he listened closely, he discovered that the deserter was Xiuhong. Not long ago, a new recruit Dongyan learned that Xiuhong's brother had died unexpectedly. While he was kindly trying to comfort Xiuhong an accident suddenly occurred. A firearm accidentally discharged and hit Xiaohong. By the time the captain arrived, Xiaohong had already lost consciousness. At this time, it was a crucial period for the captain's promotion. If the higher-ups learned of this, not only would his promotion be ruined, but he could also face disciplinary actions, so he decided to conceal it, and force Dongyan to bury Xiaohong's body together, to eliminate any trace. What they didn't know was that Xiaohong had merely fainted from blood loss. In the end, he suffocated underground. Overnight, Xiaohong became the deserter in his comrades' eyes. The unit even sent people to search his home. The elderly mother was devastated to learn that her son was missing. On the other hand, to prevent the incident from being exposed, the captain decided to give Dongyan a 3-day leave, and gave him some money as a sealing fee. Xiaohong's wrong spirit was already seeking them out. After leaving the unit, Dongyan could only drown his sorrows in alcohol. When he arrived at a bar to numb himself with alcohol, the spotlight above him suddenly revealed Xiaohong's ghostly figure. The ghost desperately shook the spotlight, trying to use heavy objects to smash him to death on the spot. Just at this moment, Zhang Lin, who was chasing behind, witnessed this scene. Xiaohong also spotted Zhang Lin among the crowd. Seeing that the plan had failed, he could only flee again. To prevent Xiaohong's wrong spirit from causing more chaos, Zhang Lin immediately flashed out to chase after him. Ultimately, he captured him on a high-rise building above the city. Considering the injustices he suffered in life, Zhang Lin decided to give him another chance, to let go of his resentment, and abandon his desire for revenge. When he went to the underworld for judgment, he would do his utmost to defend him. Xiaohong couldn't hear any of it. He only wanted revenge now, and made the wrongdoer pay the price. Meanwhile, Dongyan couldn't bear the torment within himself, so he threw a map marking the burial site into Xiaohong's mother's yard. The elderly woman saw the army's camouflage cover on the map, and realized it was related to her younger son's disappearance. At this moment, Xiaohong, standing behind his mother, also sensed Dongyan's remorse, because Dongyan had killed his comrade. Dongyan lived in fear every day, so he decided to end his life to atone for his sins. Dongyan's life was about to come to an end. Zhang Lin could only stand by and lament for him, because hell's messengers couldn't intervene in the affairs of the living world. At the critical moment, Xiaohong suddenly appeared. He pleaded with Zhang Lin to save Dongyan, and agreed to go back to hell for judgment himself, to quickly end the turmoil in the living world. Zhang Lin ultimately decided to save Dongyan. In this moment, Xiaohong chose to forgive him. Meanwhile, Jin Zihong and the others also arrived at the Hell of Lies. Before them stood a girl sucking on a lollipop, who was the king of Taishan, in charge of the Hell of Lies. Despite her innocent and kind appearance, she showed no mercy during the interrogation. The judge read out all the lies Jin Zihong had told in life. It turned out that after his teammate perished in the flames, Jin Zihong had been impersonating his teammate's voice to write 98 letters to his daughter. In the eyes of the judge, such actions were a crime of forgery, and even creating the illusion that the father is still alive for the girl who received the letter. Even if the girl knew the letters were fake, she still waited every day at the door for her dad to come home. These letters caused the girl even more pain. In response, the king of Taishan decided to cut out Jin Zihong's tongue. Two demons prepared to act immediately with iron pliers. Meanwhile, Zhang Lin, in the living world, sensed everything happening. He quickly contacted Helen to turn the situation around. Firstly, Jin Zihong had indeed deceived to some extent, but it was precisely because of these letters that hope was brought to the lost girl. Even if she knew her father was gone, there were still firefighters who cared for her. This made her stronger in life. The king of Taishan was moved by Jin Zihong's actions, and dismissed the charges against him, declaring him not guilty. Then, the three set off for the next stop, the Hell of Injustice. This place specifically judged the cold-blooded and unjust people in life. Since Jin Zihong had spent his life saving others, there was no situation where he ignored someone in need. Thus, the King of Five Senses directly released him as not guilty. Following that was the Hell of Betrayal, crafted from mirrors. Those who betrayed others' trust in life would be trapped inside mirrors, until the mirrors and the souls within were shattered. The King of Betrayal Song Di was as beautiful as a fairy. The only betrayal she allowed was beautiful betrayal, so she believed that Jin Zihong, who had lived a life of justice, couldn't have betrayed others. Even if he did, it would be a selfless and beautiful betrayal. Thus, Jin Zihong smoothly passed through the Hell of Betrayal. What awaited him was the next stop, the Hell of Violence. However, here, all the good deeds he had done in life would no longer count, because, during high school, he did indeed physically abuse his malnourished brother. At that time, the young Xiaohong could only endure the beating. Afterward, Jin Zihong didn't apologize. This left Xiuhong with a lasting shadow of resentment regarding the matter. After the incident, Jin Zihong chose to run away from home. He hadn't returned to that home for 15 years. This also led to Xiuhong never forgiving Jin Zihong. Thus, the king of violent hell Qin Guang skipped the defense stage and directly imposed punishment on Jin Zihong, just as he was about to fall into the vacuum hell beneath him. At the critical moment, Jiang Lin contacted Helen again. He urged her to request that the punishment be cumulative with the next layer of hell. If he was found not guilty in the next layer of hell, then Jin Zihong could also smoothly reincarnate. But if he was declared guilty, the punishments from both hells would accumulate. Not only would Jin Zihong be unable to reincarnate, but the three hell messengers would also lose their powers. Regarding Helen's request, King Qin Guang expressed shock, but this was also a normal rule of hell. He could only temporarily cancel the punishment for Jin Zihong and let them continue to the final stop, the hell of familial relations. This layer of hell was related to one's parents. It judged the kindness and filial piety shown to one's parents in life. Regarding Jin Zihong's character up to that point, they believed he would easily pass through the hell of familial relations. However, what no one expected was that an unexpected incident occurred in the living world. Xiuhong's deaf-mute mother felt something was wrong after seeing the map, so she ventured into the military camp alone to seek justice for her son. She was violently beaten by the captain. At this moment, Xiuhong was preparing to follow Jiang Lin back to the underworld. When he saw what was happening before him, the anger in his heart was ignited. The powerful resentment from Xiuhong generated an attacking force that made Jiang Lin unable to match him. He was determined to make the captain pay a price. As the resentment couldn't dissipate, Jin Zihong in the underworld was also affected. He pushed Helen aside forcefully, as the quicksand beneath him slowly engulfed him, until only his hand remained above the surface. Helen could only cry out for help loudly. Finally, her cries broke through the underworld and reached Xiuhong's ears. Seeing his brother trapped in the quicksand because of him, he could only suppress the anger within him to restore calm to everything. As Xiuhong returned to his normal form, Jin Zihong was rescued from the quicksand. At this moment, a stone forest appeared on the ground of the underworld. This was the final layer, the hell of familial relations. Before the judge could read out the defendant's guilt, King Yanluo directly pronounced the judgment. Jin Zihong committed the crime of killing his mother. He gave Helen no opportunity to defend him at all, and issued a ruling that found Jin Zihong guilty. Regarding this outcome, Jin Zihong wasn't surprised. It turned out that before he beat his brother that day, Jin Zihong once thought of covering his sleeping mother with a pillow and then dying with his brother. His mother, who had been ill and hospitalized for years, had exhausted all the family's savings. At that time, Jin Zihong thought that perhaps death would be a relief for the entire family. But in the end, he was unable to take action and could only turn his inner struggle into a fist and hit his young brother. The guilt towards his mother and brother forced Jin Zihong to flee from this home. To atone for this mistake, he could only work hard to earn money to provide a better life for his mother and brother. One could say that for these 15 years, he had lived entirely for his family. But even so, it couldn't change the fact that Jin Zihong had wanted to kill his mother. Helen tried to salvage the situation and stated that Jin Zihong ultimately didn't succeed, and that his mother was unaware of this matter. To convince Helen and Jin Zihong, King Yanluo summoned the Mirror of Karma to replay the events of that day before everyone's eyes. Originally, Jin Zihong's mother had not been asleep that day. She was fully aware of Jin Zihong's actions, but she didn't expose her son, because her existence had plunged the family's finances into a bottomless pit. She knew that only by dying could her two sons live like normal people. Although she knew Jin Zihong had wanted to kill her, her love for her son never changed. For 15 years, she had longed for her wayward son to come home, but in the end, she received news of his death. At this moment, upon learning the truth, Jin Zihong was already in tears. He couldn't imagine how his mother, who had known the truth for over a decade, would endure it. Jin Zihong cried and begged King Yanluo to allow him see his mother for the last time. He wanted to personally apologize to his mother for being 15 years late, but life offers no chances for a do-over. He had countless opportunities while alive, but chose to evade them time and again. King Yanluo was furious and ordered the judge to announce the verdict. But at this moment, a violent shaking suddenly occurred in hell, and Xiuhong's voice echoed in everyone's ears.
엄마 일어나봐. 빨리.
It turned out that Jiang Lin had abused his power to force Xiuhong to give his mother a dream message. In the dream, Xiuhong told his mother that he had become a judge. He was now going to heaven to judge the wicked in the world. They would no longer be able to meet again. He hoped his mother wouldn't be sad or cry about it. Upon hearing this, although the mother was saddened, she still held back the tears in her eyes. However, when Xiuhong mentioned Jin Zihong, who had worked tirelessly for both of them all his life, his mother's long-suppressed tears instantly welled up. The bond between the mother and her sons moved the observing King Yen Luo. At this moment, the mother suddenly spoke up. Actually, over the years, she had never blamed Jin Zihong. Instead, she felt she had been a burden to her two sons. Xiuhong hugged his mother and wept uncontrollably. Far away in hell, Jin Zihong also heard everything. He had always felt guilty towards his mother, even until his death. They had not been reunited. Now both sons had passed away in succession, leaving behind a lonely elderly woman struggling to survive. In life, who can guarantee they won't make mistakes in their lifetime? Only a very few people can truly muster the courage to seek forgiveness, and among those, even fewer have the chance to receive genuine understanding. In the end, King Yen Luo tore up the verdict. According to the rules of hell, if the wrongdoer can be forgiven, then the underworld could no longer be judged. Thus, after being found not guilty, Jin Zihong was immediately reincarnated. His only regret was that he couldn't say a final goodbye to his mother. Perhaps people spend their entire lives busy with money, often neglecting their closest family members. When time carves wrinkles on the faces of parents, and when once lively children grow into adults, we realize that those moments devoured by money are forever gone. The guilt and regret arising from neglect ultimately become irreparable losses in life. At the end of the film, Xiuhong became the 49th nobleman in the underworld. According to the rules, wrong spirits aren't allowed to enter here. What could be the reason that made Jiang Lin willing to violate the rules of hell to force his way in? The subsequent story continues. Interested friends can check out the original film, along with the gods, the two worlds. If you enjoy my channel, please click subscribe.